Welcome into MJT Football. It is Mock Draft Monday. We've been threatening to sabotage your fantasy seasons by giving our fantasy football advice. And it's not really advice. It's just sort of like what our opinions are and a good reason for us to talk about something that we love so much, which is playing fantasy football with our friends. And that season is rapidly approaching. We're a month away. This is the time of year where you sit around, you speculate, you hope. Like, Joe, let me ask you this: like, which player right now, before we dive into this, and there is a link. Anybody who is watching this, who's jumped in here, please feel free to hit the link in the description. Join this draft. We've got like 5 or 6 spots left here. But Joe, who's the one player like? And I know who it was for me last year for sure. But who's the one player that you hope more than it's like realistic, right? Like your aspirations for that player are higher than what the realistic output could be for that sort of a player. Like last year for me, it was George Pickens. Like I was picking George Pickens in like the 5th round. I was certain he was going to be as good as I thought he was going to be. Quarterback be damned. Who's that player?
Like who I'm really, really high on this year that I'm hoping to break out. And
yeah, but it's like it's like less than a 50-50 shot, kind of.
I don't know. I think this is better than a 50% chance. It's Keon Coleman, and that's. But you never know with rookie wide receivers on a new team, so that's the guy. Like I want to go, but I don't know where to get him in the draft, and I don't want to go too high on him because last year I went high on some rookies and it did pay off.
See, I think Keon Coleman is the perfect example of somebody that in your mind, you're saying you think it's better than a 50-50 shot that Keon Coleman could be worth like a top 6 round pick in this draft. But we've never seen him in the NFL. It's going to be like a completely different offense. Maybe it'll look more like the final sort of 4 to 6 weeks, including playoffs for the Bills last year. And Keon Coleman can really thrive in that. But that's the kind of thing where if you're drafting these players, like I said, last year I drafted George Pickens as my wide receiver 3, and I passed up on a lot of really good opportunities to get players in those rounds that ended up having a ton more points. So, yeah, Keon Coleman, that's definitely a good one there. I'm having a similar situation right now. Like whenever I'm drafting, I'm getting a lot of Cortland Sutton just because he's going in around like 7 or 8. And then I want to make sure that I get him. I just think that like I could see a situation where he's featured in the offense heavily in like a Mike Thomas situation, right? Where I'm doing the math in my head and I'm going, man, if I could get Cortland Sutton and round 6 ahead of where other people might be even thinking about reaching on him at 7 or 8, it's like, I'm going to get this guy who might have 100 plus catches and 1,400 yards this year, approaching double-digit touchdowns. And I just build up this thing in my head where it's like, I got to have him. And then by draft day, I'm like late 5th round, early 6th, I'm taking Cortland Sutton. And that's the player I'm kind of talking myself into where it's like, I gotta have this player in my draft. So it's that time of year. You just start building up, fairy tales for whatever it is. We're going to give it a couple more minutes here. I think we just had Renee jump in. That's awesome. Again, like I said, I don't know, Zero, Harrison. I don't even know who's watching this, who's here. I will also say this too. I've noticed in my I've done probably 15, 16 mock drafts on the, what's the name of the app? The Draft Wizard, Dynasty Pros. Sorry about that. I think that's what it's called. Anyways, in that, there's a tremendous run on wide receiver by like round 4, Joe. Like the drop off is wild.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And it's like you want it. I've always had a hard time, Tony, going top wide receivers. Like, and I'm old school draft where I know that everybody wants to go that running back still. Like that's me. I want to go running back first round, and then I have to tell myself no because I need a top receiver because I think that it's changing that way. So we'll see. These mock drafts have been good. We'll see how this one goes, but I'm ready to start it. I'm ready to go, and I want to see how how I can manipulate some of these wide receivers because especially now in PPR, like it's crazy, like how good these receivers are getting you points over running backs.
Yeah, I think so too. Where it's like if I wait and take running backs a little bit later, I feel so much better about my draft. Or if I get one at the top and then I don't draft a running back again until round 5, 6, 7, I feel way better about my team. Like even when I'm taking, like in some of these drafts where I take a tight end, maybe Mark Andrews is still on the board in round 4 or 5, and I'm like, I can't pass up on essentially wide receiver.
I'm gonna start the draft because I know Renee's on his lunch break, and I know we have some empty spots, but that's all right. This first one we'll get going.
Let's do it. Man.
See how this goes. Because I want to see how many Patriots Renee ends up taking because that's right there. That's another interesting team. Like how good is their offense going to be? How is it? There's a couple of receivers that could be the number one guy over there in Patriots land. So I've been going back and forth on some of those guys. It's just interesting.
Yeah, well, so I think like when I'm drafting and I'm looking at Patriots, it's like Ramondre Stevenson, and then I'm not really looking at anybody again until probably round 10 for Douglas. Like there's just not a lot going on there. Like I can't imagine Renee is like, well, I gotta get at least one Patriot on my roster. Like I don't think that's
what Patriot am I gonna get?
Like I really like if I was drafting in a Dynasty league and it's like a deeper roster and I get to have like a taxi squad or something like that where I get to have some players that I could bench for a minute. I really like Jalen Polk as an NFL talent player wide receiver, but I don't think I would draft him in anything like this.
But there's always a rookie or some type of player, some rookie or like a 1 or 2 year guy that comes out of nowhere and he ends up being the guy that wins your fantasy league for you. Stevenson all the way, as Renee's saying.
I took this spot specifically so that I could get Amon-Ra St. Brown or Bijan Robinson. And I just sat here talking about all the wide receiver stuff, but I'm going to take Bijan. Like sometimes in drafts, I know what the smart decision is, but I also know the player that I want to have on a roster.
So like take St. Brown, let you let him go.
Yeah, but like in certain leagues, I am much more flexible with my draft where it's like I'll take a player because I want to root for that player. Like the more competitive the leagues get, that's when it starts to get tough. You're back on the clock here after the Jets smash. Computer.
So Bijan, Breece Hall, and Gibbs. Those would probably be like, I think they're all about the same. Like to me, like you have question marks about them, but they're going to be workhorse like a lot. So those three, like I have a toss up between those three. I think I would go Bijan like you did first, but then between Hall and Gibbs, who are you taking?
You got 15 seconds left. I would probably go with Breece Hall. I just think that there's a great opportunity for him this year, and I don't feel as threatened by some of the running backs in that scenario. I would go with Breece Hall.
And I was going to say I like Baker, but you're on the clock, Tony.
Yeah, I'm taking your boy here. This is pretty easy. I want to get a wide receiver. I think it's pretty like insane value to me that we are putting Devontae Adams this far down the list. Like, say what you want to say, like Aiden O'Connell was a rookie last year. He's going to be better having a full off season, being understanding it. If he's the starter, he's still going to be able to get the ball to Devontae. And then we just watched Michael Pittman, who we don't think is the caliber receiver that Devontae Adams is. And Pittman Jr. just had a big year with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Like, Minshew will get excellent players the football. So, like, Devontae Adams is still going to have top 5 value in fantasy football this year.
Yeah, and I've been seeing him drop in a couple drafts that I've done, and I'm like, oh man. Normally I would have took him there, but I every time you do a mock draft, I don't like to do the same thing over and over. So I like to mix it up, and I don't know how much I like Derrick Henry this year, and you would assume that it's going to be a great year for Derrick Henry and the Ravens offense, right? Like, who's going to stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry? But then again, there's always that question mark, like, hey, Titans got rid of Derrick Henry for a reason. Was it just money? Is he getting old? He's taking a lot of hits. So every player breaks down at one point. Do you want to be that guy who gets stuck with the older veteran and on your fantasy team?
So in the second round, I'm willing to take that risk, though, Joe. That's my thing. Where it's like in the second round, if Derrick Henry's on the board, I'm probably taking him. If I would have taken like what you have there, where it's St. Brown, if I would have went that at 6 and Henry's on the board coming back this way, I'm going to consider him in that same area, although it would be tough for me to pass up on Devontae Adams in this spot.
So I've been, yeah. So this already is interesting to see Sam Laporta go the first tight end off the board. I mean, it was a computer pick, but it's still interesting to see that one with Travis Kelce second.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a similar trend. The more that you draft with the experienced people, they're going to draft Laporta higher than Kelce this season. Although I just saw something where Laporta left with an injury. I did not have enough time to check and see what the injury was, the severity of it, or whatever. So that'll be interesting. Nico Collins going up here in the third round to me is a little wild, a little crazy.
See, and that's an interesting team to be drafting about and looking at is the Houston Texans, and they basically have 3 wide receivers plus their running backs. That how much of the ball is going to be able to be spread around in that offense. So you never know. Like, you would assume that Diggs is going to go down there and be the number 1 guy, but last year he kind of fell off with. And was that the offense in Buffalo, or is that Diggs? So, I mean, it's just another question mark that we have going on.
Yeah, the guy that I really like, and I'm a big fan of Nico Collins. You know, I will always rep Michigan players. But Tank Dell is the guy that I like from the offense that I think has the best opportunity to really thrive in this next season because of his ability to get open. I think he can win outside. And they're really great at play designs from the slot. So Tank Dell's the receiver because of the round value that I'm seeing him go in mock drafts, where it's like, oh, I think Tank Dell's, real viable in that 6th, 7th round where he's ended up a lot. So a little run on QBs here from the computer section, getting frisky.
Now, here's another guy that I might be high on. I was high on him last year. He did pretty good for me. James Cook, and he should be more featured in the offense going into this year, because that's what they did towards the end of last year. Is they gave James Cook the ball, and when James Cook got the ball, the offense cooked. Got it? You like that one?
Look at Chef over here. No, I do. I like James Cook a lot. He's somebody that I would have also considered at this spot. I've seen him in mock drafts making it into the 5th round, and if he's anywhere near the 5th round, like I've been mock drafting for a league where I got the 1st overall pick, and I got him at the 4 or 5 turn, and was very happy about him being RB2 on that squad. Renee has a little shout out here for Javon Baker, and I just want to say real quick, I forgot they drafted him too. The Patriots may have just drafted their best 2 wide receivers in like 10 years in one draft. So congratulations to the Patriots. They got something to be excited about. Go ahead.
So I was looking at Cooper Kupp for the last 2 rounds, and Injuries always scare me off because of of what it is. But Puka left injury with a knee injury yesterday at practice. He's day to day. With Cooper Kupp supposed to be 100% now because it was just a hamstring last year, and those bother you the whole damn year. So, you just took Cooper Kupp. Do you think he has that great bounce back season?
I almost took him where I drafted DJ Moore, but I thought that I just had a chance since there is a lot of computers drafting that he was going to be able to make it back to me. In a real draft, I probably would have went Cooper Kupp in that spot and then just waited in this area in round 4. I would have went somebody with Tank Dell, Zay Flowers maybe, or drafted one of these running backs that I really like. So it's like,
stole your quarterback.
What is it?
I said they stole Anthony Richardson right before you.
No, I'm really okay with waiting on quarterbacks in all of my drafts this year. Matt B, this is a redraft. No dynasty should have this many great players available, even if you're just doing like a 5-man keeper league. This is a lot of talent up here. Yeah. No, why, Matt B, are you more in a dynasty? Because I would love throw a couple of dynasty thoughts, questions, whatever in the chat, and let's banter back and forth on that, because I do have a dynasty draft coming up here in a couple of months, and I'm my head's all over the board with who I want to draft and where I want to go.
Because that's another guy that I'm interested Tony in right now is, and he'll be available in dynasty drafts, is Jonathan Brooks. It's Brooks because he's going to miss 3 weeks of the season, and I know you want to take him, but a rookie running back in dynasty and is great to get, but especially in redrafts, where would you take Brooks at?
So in a redraft league, I'm probably a lot lower on Jonathan Brooks than the rest of the drafting community, especially like when I'm drafting on Fantasy Pros, I'm a lot lower. But like in Dynasty, I'm all for Jonathan Brooks because I think he's gonna end up in an offense that's dedicated. They've dedicated to the interior of that offensive line, which is something that I really like for running back. So yeah, I mean Matt here, who says he has 8 Dynasty leagues, is is in a spot. Oh shit, I'm on the clock. And
for me, I was like, damn it, I took Christian Kirk.
No, I don't hate the Christian Kirk pick, Joe.
No, it wasn't. I was gonna take David Montgomery at that point, but it's all right. I could probably get him. Hopefully, if you don't steal him because you just listen to me.
Yeah, no. So in this spot, like I knew coming up, I was thinking about potentially in this.
I wonder if can we set this for a dynasty league? Is there a way to do that on Sleeper?
I think you can. I think you can do like all rookie drafts and stuff like that. You can on Dynasty Pros. I think you can like load in like the rosters, the settings or something where they can.
That would be interesting to do the way that Matt is saying, because a lot of people like dynasties used to not. I don't know. I don't think it used to be as popular as they are now. Fantasy football alone.
So right here, it's like I really want to draft Brock Bowers, but I don't want to have 2. Joe,
the popularity of fantasy football is crazy now because it used to be just the seasonal thing, and now you have the hardcore guys that are 24/7, 365. You little punk.
I took your guy, Joe. I said I hate to do it to you, but I really don't. Me just already having 3 running backs here, and I know there's another running back I want coming up later. And then I probably would have taken Bowers in a situation like this, but I don't want to have Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers. Like, I don't really love having 1 Raider on my team, let alone having 2. That's just not a spot I'm I'm looking to grab.
That I'm a Raider fan, and I'm not like I'm still iffy on Brock Bowers just because of the quarterback position. I know that in training camp, and it's training camp, and you got to take training camp reports with a grain of salt. That he's unstoppable in the red zone, they say, but that bothers me because that it could be the team, it could be the defense, it could be all kinds of stuff about it.
You are on the clock, Joe. I don't want you missing your spot here. But yeah, this is like the part of the draft where I've kind of already like made what my strategy is going to be, and it's like I'm going to take some shots at quarterback and I'm going to take some shots at tight end at the end of the draft, but I am going to leave with what I feel is very strong depth at running back and wide receiver. Like I'll have good players that I feel like I can, trade some of my top guys and still get players from the bench. Whereas like, like let's say somebody wants a running back and they reach out for, I can get a bigger package for Bijan or Joe Mixon. I'm going to feel good about making certain trades because I'll have depth at a couple of positions.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the available quarterbacks right now, Tony, because you haven't taken one, I haven't taken one.
Yeah,
it looks like Team 1 hasn't taken one. So 1, 2, 3. 3 teams haven't taken quarterbacks, and there's still, I think, pretty solid quarterbacks out there. And one of them, I don't know why he falls, Tony, and I think it's the injury factor again. But Justin Herbert's on the board. Jared Goff, runs one of the top offenses. Kirk Cousins, is he going to bounce back and have a great year? Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, those guys are still on the board after 10 quarterbacks have already been taken, 9 quarterbacks.
And that's why I'm perfectly okay with like trying to. So like what I want to do this year in fantasy, and normally I don't do this, but I want to maybe take a shot on one of these like younger quarterbacks to rookie quarterbacks. Like I said when we first started talking fantasy football this offseason, that I was a big believer in Will Levis, right? Like I'm willing to pair Will Levis with like Jared Goff or Brock Purdy and see if he hits. Yeah, I already got it queued up with where I'm going. I talked about this guy to open the show as somebody that I couldn't stop drafting. I wanted to see if he would go higher than the 9th round, but he didn't. But Cortland Sutton as my wide receiver 5, it's like if Keon Coleman starts slow, if I need it, like, because in the format we're drafting in, we're starting 3 wide receivers in this format. So having 5 wide receivers by the 10th round was definitely a goal of mine, and feel good about that. So like,
You always love Sutton.
He's just one of those players where it's like you look up at the end of the year and you're like, oh wait, the guy is producing every week. As long as he's healthy, he gives really good value, especially down here. And then just knowing that Sean Payton is the OC, feeling really good about the opportunities I think he could have.
And Matt saying second-year quarterback Bryce Young is positioned for a rebound with new coaches and wide receivers like Johnson. But yeah, if it's only a single quarterback, who cares about Bryce though? But like again, like with the Xavier Legette there, with the different offensive coordinator, you saw what he did with Baker Mayfield last year to turn him around. I mean, like I said, it just. 1 year, it doesn't matter who it is. Somebody could do. I'm gonna take take Jacoby Myers right there.
There you go. You got to get a Raider on your.
I have to take one Raider, right? I have to.
Yeah, I've been leaning more towards ex-Chargers than I have the current Chargers team. Where it's like great value on Keenan, great value on Mike Williams and Austin Eckler. Here's a guy that I think will get drafted a lot sooner come draft time, which is Chase Brown. I just think that the hype on him is going to go up because of, the competition for snaps. I think I've already saw an injury to Zach Moss.
Yeah.
So I really like Zach Moss, and I think if he's healthy, he can steal touches. He can be the hot hand, but I'll take a guy who's going to get 15 to 18 touches in the Bengals offense. Like, especially
his own offensive lineman came out yesterday, right? Was it yesterday or the day before? And was like, if I played fantasy football, I would be taking Chase Brown on my team every day, all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, they have to say that. They got to share a locker room with the guy. But I do think that, like, there's no way he's still here in a normal draft. 12 people are drafting. They have information. They have influences from whichever analysts that they, prognosticators they think are the best. Those are the guys that they're leaning into. And all of them are going to have Chase Brown as being picked higher than the 10th round. But I'm going to draft him just so at the end I feel really great about my roster.
I'm going to take it if he falls this way. If he falls
no, my tight end that I was hoping for is gone.
Who, Schultz?
Yeah.
I almost took him last round.
Louis, killing it, brother. I'm gonna go with I'll go with old reliable here. Yeah, Matt says. Go ahead, Joe.
Keenan gets his though. Yeah, Keenan. No matter what, like everybody's been trying to count Keenan out for years, and he keeps continuing. So. Justin Tucker, what the hell? Sometimes that's what you get with auto pick is you get some weird kickers going early or a defense. I don't know why it does that, but we should turn those off. That's my bad.
Taking my guy. I can't let him sit any longer than this. Matt's thing about who's the guy in Chicago. I think I lean DJ Moore and then Keenan Allen. I think those two are going to be the big playmakers. Are going to be there for Caleb Williams in development. Like two guys that Keenan can just knows the NFL. He's an expert at being able to get open. And DJ Moore is still one of the sort of forgotten about elite players. And the Bears recognized it. They just gave him $27.5 million.
Yeah.
The Jet, like I was waiting on Cole Kmet and now he's gone too. Okay. You guys are killing.
So this is one of my strategies. I don't know if this will work or if it would even fall like this because I don't know if Jaden Daniels will really fall in a main draft. But to pick up a young quarterback like Jaden Daniels, because I really think he could be one of the best ones this year, and then a veteran one in Aaron Rodgers, I have two guys that I could pick every week to go back and forth, and I'm not really worried about injuries because at least I'll have one of them ready.
For which one? Say that again.
I took Jaden Daniels and Aaron Rodgers, so I like my.
And that's a pairing that I like too, where it's like, okay, this is something I would do. There's another tight end I really like. Quarterback. Let's go back over here. See. I missed out on my guy Josh Palmer, huh? Talking too much. I'm going to get I don't typically handcuff anymore, right? But in a situation where I have Bijan, if I can get Tyler Algier still on the board this late, I'll go ahead and take I'll take the guy that I think will be a no doubt RB2 in the event of a Bijan injury. So I'd feel good about that.
Renee was cleaning his pool and got stuck on auto pick, he said. That's cool because I don't remember ever getting an invite to go swimming at Renee's house. So nice to know that he actually has a pool in this nice California weather.
Lottie freaking da. Look at this guy. Again, for anybody watching this, like I don't typically draft defenses or kickers in mock drafts. So people are like, "Hey, why aren't they drafting defense or kicker?" Even though it's listed as positions we should be drafting. I'm not gonna participate in the nonsense of drafting those guys. And typically on draft day, I don't draft them either. I wait till week 1 and stream both of those positions. All right, back to me. So I'm going to get the other tight end that I like. I think there's value.
I did see that report, Matt, about Algier. That they have it, but I mean, we saw it last year where Atlanta didn't use it, Bijan, but I think that's what got their coach fired for using multiple running backs.
Well, so I think that if I'm the Falcons at a certain point, you're gonna want to have games where you're gonna be wanting to smash the ball a little bit more, and that's Tyler Algier. That's not Bijan Robinson. Like, why are we putting that wear and tear on his body? So I think that there's going to be games for them where it's like, hey, things are going to get a little bit ugly here, and we might be leaning on Tyler Algier a little bit more. This is going to be my last pick, and just because I feel like he's going free, but he's got a real shot, to maybe reach that potential, have some strong fill-in weeks. I can't quit you, Gabe Davis. I just, I think with Trevor Lawrence there, and it's going to be tough to project what weeks those might be if everybody's healthy, but I think he's definitely worth a pick because we don't know outside of Christian Kirk in the wide receiver room, like is Brian Thomas Jr. going to be stealing all those targets? We know Evan Ingram's going to be high volume. ETN's going to be a big part of the passing game. So I think if you give Gabe Davis that money, he's going to be somewhat of a part of that offense, and he's going to be a deep threat early on. Trevor Lawrence is going to take some shots to him. So I'm all for it. And we've seen Zay Jones be fantasy relevant in these scenarios. So I'm all for it.
Tony, quiet for a little bit. Brandon the Ruiner. He ruined our podcast. He came on here and he says that we don't know how to draft players and it's okay.
Thank you, Brandon. We appreciate you stopping by and reminding us.
Brandon, there's always a link and you can just show us how you are the greatest drafter in the world because we don't give a fuck. We don't claim to be the best. We're just on here to have fun and waste some time, basically.
Oh yeah, and there's no way that I would ever be like, "Hey, I've got great advice. You should listen to me. You should pay for this advice."
You joining us, Matt. I want to look and see if we can get the all rookie one, and maybe we can get you to join and do a dynasty one with us. So we'll be looking for that name. I appreciate you joining us, though.
Oh yeah. Have a great meeting, Matt. Appreciate you stopping by. Hopefully we'll be back again Monday, 11 a.m. Next week, and do it again. Change up the format a little bit and have some fun there. Maybe we'll even do it as we get closer to Dynasty. Joe, let's take a look at your squad here. QBs, you're going rookies, Jaden Daniels, Aaron Rodgers. Wide receivers, I think wide receivers 1 through 4, you're pretty stacked. Like at flex, if Christian Kirk is your flex, or maybe Gus Edwards is taking off, scoring a lot of touchdowns there. That's great. And
I don't like Gus Edwards. I know, but I just have to listen to you and Mike as Charger fans build them up all damn day. But I was like, Gus Edwards late in an offense that should be running the ball, it'd be all right.
Offense that's going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball inside the 5. And think about, the number of times, Lamar Jackson maybe vulture to score. Maybe that's 1 or 2 times only, but like maybe those extra touches go to Gus Edwards. The guy's like 250 pounds, a 6'3". Like he looks huge. Even in like the number 4 makes him look even bigger. I'm really excited for Gus Edwards and what he can do. I think running backs, the depth falls off a little bit on your roster, obviously, because then you might have to be playing Gus Edwards in a spot, like you might have to be playing Tony Pollard. And I think Tony Pollard's
See, but I
You
like
know,
Tony. I'm starting to like Tony Pollard, especially in the offense going down there. We talked about the Tennessee offense being
yeah.
a question mark and what Callahan can do down there. Um, so I do like Tony Pollard because he's not just. I mean, he can catch out of the backfield. There's a lot of that he can do that not a lot of running backs are able to. So I'm not taking him as my number one guy. You know, I got Henry and Cook, but to put Pollard in the flex or somewhere else, I like it for.
Yeah, I actually like Tajay Spears, who I'm drafting him in like the 7th round, in some drafts. It's my RB3 or 4, depending on like which direction I'm going, at the top end of the draft. But I, I think behind the Callahan offense, Callahan and Callahan, father son duo.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I definitely think both those guys can thrive. Uh, Tight end in this team you have here,
I just
just Michael Mayer.
yeah, I waited too long. I waited too long, and I was going to take Schultz at one point. I was going to take somebody else, and then I was like, and then I waited too long. But I've done that. I've done that in the past where I wait like kickers, defense, and tight ends to me are like the worst positions that I ever draft. That's just my personal opinion. So I wait on those three all the time, and sometimes it pays off. Like last year, it paid off when I took Laporta late in the draft. I think with the last round. So I don't know. It's to me, it's like I figure if I'm not getting one of the top tight ends, it's not worth it to me. I'll wait. And I actually do like Michael Mayer, and I like Michael Mayer a little bit more than Brock Bowers, even though being a Raider fan, I like what Michael Mayer could bring to the team. And if they are using the 12 personnel like they say they are or will, or they use Brock Bowers, as a wide receiver, or in some cases. Um, Michael Mayer should be able to get open, and he had when Antonio Pierce took over last year, Michael Mayer was getting some targets.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I just tend to think Brock Bowers is better at getting open, and that's still a big thing in the NFL. Especially like if you're deciding between a player that's like the football is going to have to be in like a little tighter spot. Like I just don't know how much of the scheming open they're going to do for Mayer. It's not that I think he's probably a better football player than he is like fantasy relevant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I think he's a good part of the Raiders offense. And, part of the argument that I was having with Mike when we were driving to training camp the other day was like, could you imagine like if you drop in Dak on this Raiders offense, how much better the Raiders would be, and like the difference that people would be talking about the Raiders, right? Can the defense be as good as they were last year? Because the Raiders defense was pretty good. It had some holes, some things to clean up, but could be better. Adding Christian Wilkins is definitely going to help that out. But if you added Dak and you just upgraded that QB position to whatever you think of Dak, even if you think he's somewhere between 8 and 12, you're still he's throwing to Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams and 2 tight ends. Zamir White looked really good at the end of the season. It's like all of a sudden the Raiders, people are talking about him a lot differently. So I don't know that I would bet on Mayer having like a huge fantasy football season, but you're a Raider fan. Go for it, brother.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I took him late in the draft because there's nobody else to take at the tight end position, and I was like, I'll just take somebody so I could talk about him. And that's all we do for these mock drafts is just be able to talk about players that could have a potential, could not. Like right there, like one of the guys that I really like this year is Lloyd, and he went where'd he go? 10th round, running back to Green Bay. Especially now with stuff coming out about Josh Jacobs already having like an injury to his calf, I believe, or growing or something like that. One of his injuries. So I like Lloyd. And then Tony, I was going to ask you this. I don't think I've asked you this year. The Pittsburgh Steelers running back position. Are you a Warren guy or are you a Harris guy? Which one are you taking?
So I always kind of lean towards Najee Harris. I just think the opportunities are there for, inside the 5 touchdowns. I also just like the way that they're trending, the dedication. I think they had 3 picks in the first like 4 or 5 rounds dedicated to the offensive line. Like this is going to be a team that I think is going to run the ball better. They ran the ball better last year when they brought in Broderick Jones. So that's a direction that I like to see them heading. It's contract time for Najee Harris. I don't think they picked up the 5th-year option for him. So little extra motivation, not that he needs it. He already runs kind of angry. And then you fold in the fact that they're bringing in Arthur Smith, who has shown that he can have a really good run game. Now, it wasn't very good last year, but it was good the year before that with Tyler Algier. And then they had that other, the rookie, Smith, was it? I forget who it was, but they had like three players in the backfield that were really cooking them. Cordero Patterson, and then go back to his time with Tennessee. Like he's shown he can have a really strong run game. So I lean a little bit more Najee Harris. You're counting on receptions from the running back, which Russell Wilson isn't really like a big check down quarterback. So I'm not gonna think that. I mean that he's that's gonna be his bread and butter, is find ways to get him, on different spots. I know they use Jaylen Warren uniquely. If memory serves me correctly, I think he was running some wheel routes last year where he really showed off his dynamic ability. Reminds me a lot of young Austin Eckler. So I like the player, but I would lean towards picking Harris before Warren.
Yeah, me too. I'm more of a Harris guy. And then one guy I was just going through Twitter right now, and I just saw a clip of him at practice at training camp. James Conner, somebody that you don't look at as a top running back, and you kind of forget about him. But then at the end of the season, you're like, why didn't I take James Conner? Why didn't I take James Conner? He just trucked one of his linebackers right now and ran through.
So let's take a look at this roster real quick, because this is sort of that zero RB strategy, right? Where they go Jefferson, Olave, Ayuk, Metcalf. I mean, that is a really strong 1 through 3. DK's your flex, but you don't have any running backs. If James Conner is your RB1 in this scenario, like I think you get a steal. There's a lot of people that it's like, yes, Trey Benson may take some carries or become the one towards the end of the year, but like every year James Conner has good fantasy output. He can be in the spot. Now, in this scenario, I probably wouldn't have drafted Godwin. I probably would have went, running back. I probably, like where you got Tony Pollard, I probably would have done something similar to that. I probably would have gone where this person went Purdy. I probably would have went another running back there and loaded up on this position where there's still good value. Who's there? Like could have gotten Tajay Spears where he got Brock Purdy. So, but I think that James Conner in the 6th round, like this is really it's good. It's strong. Brandon the Ruiner says, why you pick Likely and Musgrave for tight end? Well, I waited on tight end, and Brandon, a lot of times when I do these sort of mock drafts, I like to see where certain players go, are picked by other people, where other people value them. Sometimes where the auto draft selects certain players, like where they fall. So I waited on tight end. I waited around late on Dalton Schultz, which is somebody that I really like. A tight end that I've been drafting a lot in other mock drafts has been McBride and Andrews in a 5th round scenario, overtaking Joe Mixon at running back when they're in those spots. But as far as Likely goes, like, are we sure that Rashad Bateman is going to take a bulk of catches there? Like, are we, like Zay Flowers, does he get more attention? Isaiah Likely proved last year, like he's a really good football player and he needs to be a part of this offense. And he is more of a, sort of the Kincaid, Kelsey, more dynamic tight end. And I think he can be a legit part of the offense. And if I'm going to be drafting that late, I'm going to take some upside. And the same thing with Musgrave. Like, we don't know, like, even Jordan Love says we don't know who the number 1 wide receiver is. Musgrave started off a little healthy, but he had a full offseason. You're telling me I could potentially get the number 1 tight end on a quarterback that people are picking to throw for 4,800 yards, 35 plus touchdowns, and be an MVP candidate, like, yeah, I'm just throwing darts at this point at the end of the draft when I'm drafting these guys. It's not like I didn't put a ton of value in it. So, but these are likely Musgrave are two of those like dart throw late round tight ends where it's like, yeah, I feel good about having these guys out there and the offenses that they're in, the opportunities that they're in, the quarterbacks that they have. I feel good about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm trying to think of. Saw Caleb Williams go. So Caleb Williams went on team number 10. So you saw both rookie quarterbacks, because I took Jaden Daniels. I think it was a pretty good first mock draft for us. Not bad. It'd be better once we get more people involved and we actually get the more human element out of it. But I like it, Tony.
Yeah, we're all just like making our best educated guesses based on what we've seen from, the reporters, from the videos, from all this stuff. Like, we are drafting based on minimal knowledge and then our own bias previously and then our aspirations going forward. That's all fantasy football drafting is.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have we heard these people say, like, I will die on the hill, this person's going to be whatever it is, and they're not even close to that player? Or this player has no shot of being anything, and then that player is actually, like, a relevant part of the offense. So I do think that there's
how many times have
better value. Go ahead.
How many times have we had a mock draft like this, like our first mock draft, and then we do enough by the time we actually draft? Because me and you are both we're both the same. We like drafting at the end, right? The last preseason game is over, right before the end of the season, or right before the season begins. This whole thing changes week to week, and then when preseason games start playing, you'll see people move up and down. So, like, say next week, this whole draft will be totally different than what we have now. And then I just want to tell you, Tony, like this year, my league is doing something different, and I don't know, maybe it should be a normal thing for most leagues. We were trying to think of a day to do our draft, right? And everybody does the weekend before the season starts, usually either 2 weeks before or the weekend of. That's actually your normal time, right? This year we're doing something different. We're going to do it at 12 o'clock on Thursday, the first game of the season. So what is it, September 5th, I would think it is?
Yeah, something like that.
So we're going to do it at noon. That we're going to do our draft, put it in, be done by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, have everything entered, and then we're all going to have to sit there and watch the game together on the first Monday Night Football to bring us all together and just have football. Because normally we're doing our draft, we're watching college football or something like this. No, now we're actually going to have to set our lineups, and we're going to watch the Chiefs and the Ravens play together. So it's going to be one hell of a day for us.
So you just reminded me of a funny story. I was part of an ESPN fantasy draft where I think we did it. It was like, we did it a little bit late. It was like Sunday Night Football. So you were able to draft players that had already done it. But like, it was a Sunday Night Football game. And do you remember Terrence Williams in week 1? I think it was 1 year against the Giants. Went off, had like a couple of touchdowns and like 4 catches. I believe it was that game. And he was way overdrafted and then didn't do anything the rest of the season. But because the game was just on, and it was like, oh, this guy's really cooking. It was like kind of in that Miles Austin time, I believe, for them. Like, I think Romo still might have been the quarterback. It was a while ago. But there was a draft like that where we drafted late, and it was like on a Sunday night after it had already been picked. And there was a couple of guys that probably got overdrafted because of week 1 performances. But I wouldn't even be opposed to like let's just treat, because there's no preseason now. So what if we, especially once they add a week 18, Joe, and I'm just this is all kind of spitballing in my brain right now. What if we just said like, hey, the draft is going to be on the Tuesday after week 1's completed.
Yeah.
So we all could have information from week 1 to be drafting with what happened. And then we'd still get 16 weeks of fantasy football and just treat the first, you know what I'm saying?
but week 1 overreaction always happens. So it's gonna be you'll still be interested, but it'd be funny to see it. But yeah, we should do a draft like that. We should do it. I always say the best time to draft would be week 4. I mean, I don't like cutting our fantasy season, but week 4, if you could do it after week 4, I think you would have the most information, knowing what teams are doing, and then going from there. But either way, Tony, we gotta cut this.
Yep, let's do it. We appreciate everybody in there. RC, Matt B, who else was here? I forget.
One day we'll have Mike back. Mike, where are you? Mike.
Where is Mike? And I can't leave out Brandon the Ruiner for jumping in here at the end and just ruining our beautiful Monday. Hope everybody has a great week. We'll be back on Friday, 11:15, talking a bunch of, preseason football, what we're hoping to see from the rookies coming up next weekend. I think there'll actually be a couple of games for us to comment on. Hopefully we'll get to see some more interesting kickoff stuff. Hope everybody has a great week. Put something positive onto the internet. Share with them. We'll see you guys on Friday.